Marvel has a ton of villains in their roster, some more powerful than others, so that means that there is a treasure trove of big baddies for NetEase to line up for future seasons of Marvel Rivals. Season 0 saw us take on Doctor Doom, Season 1 had us go against Dracula, Season 2 had us pitted against Ultron, and of course now in Season 3 we are facing off against Null, which got me thinking, what other endgame level bosses could NetEase have brewing on the back burner for us? But before we take a look at these potential future big baddies, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like. If you do not, then feel free to drop a dislike if you want, but you gotta let me know why you hate me in the comments. And if you really like the video, go on and subscribe, help your boy reach 1,000 subs this year. I'm about 280 away from that goal, which once I reach 1,000, I can apply for full monetization. So give your boy a sub if you're feeling generous. With that said, let's dive on into the video. Starting at number 1 is a villain I would absolutely love to see, as he really doesn't get much screen time anywhere else outside of Marvel vs. Capcom. We have Onslaught. Onslaught is the psionic entity created when Professor X and Magneto's minds temporarily merged, combining Magneto's rage and trauma with Xavier's own trauma and anger from the conflict between mutants and humans. And because I don't want to paraphrase this and potentially lose some context in translation, I'm just going to read y'all Onslaught's description straight off of the Marvel fan wiki. Quote, Onslaught is a powerful psionic entity born from the inner hatred, resentment, and malignance from both sides of the mutant struggle when the minds of Professor X and Magneto momentarily merged. Professor X's breaking point came when Magneto ripped the adamantium from Wolverine's skeleton. In a final act of desperation, Xavier used his telepathic abilities to render Magneto catatonic, inadvertently absorbing Magneto's intense emotions and negative feelings, which combined with Xavier's own repressed darkness. This fusion birthed Onslaught, a separate entity within Xavier's psyche. Initially dormant, Onslaught's emergence was catalyzed by Xavier's mounting frustration with societal hostility towards mutants and personal tragedies, and Onslaught was freed when Xavier's astral body was pulled down to the physical plane by Nate Gray. End quote. So yeah, Onslaught is basically Professor X if he had turned out a little bit more like Magneto and never took a bullet to the spine. In the comics, Onslaught ends up becoming a reality-level threat as he kidnaps Franklin Richards and Nate Gray, two of Marvel's most powerful characters, to use their powers to transform the entire human race into a collective consciousness. And if you're still failing to comprehend just how powerful and dangerous Onslaught is, it took the combined force of the Avengers, the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, a handful of other heroes, and Dr. Motherfucking Doom teaming up just to beat him. This man is him. He makes MCU Thanos look like a shit stain. So yeah, I would definitely love to see him as one of the season's big bad evil guys. Lore-wise, perhaps Emma cooks up some plan to get Professor X back onto Krakoa, as the island has been shunted into the year 2099, separating a lot of its mutant inhabitants. Magneto, for whatever reason, doesn't love her plan. He tries to stop it, and in the process tears the adamantium from Wolverine's body, as Wolverine ends up siding with Emma. And at the same time as Magneto is ripping the adamantium out of Wolverine's body, Professor X will arrive in 2099, see what Magneto has done, and will mind meld with him, giving us Onslaught, baby. This would also obviously be the season we get Professor X as a playable hero, and even maybe a feral Wolverine skin to go along with Magneto ripping the adamantium out of Wolverine. Honestly, I think this would be my favorite season if this is how things played out, or even if they just use Onslaught in any capacity. It doesn't really need to be the way that I explained it here, because I am just a huge X-Men fan. Literally, the thing that re-sparked my interest in Marvel for the last couple of years is the X-Men 97 TV show. The show fully pulled me right back into the Marvel sphere, and I've been deep in here ever since. And next up at number 2, I briefly mentioned him during Onslaught's intro, but it's none other than Thanos. Yes, I know. Thanos has been run through in terms of media appearances thanks to the MCU, but he definitely will be making an appearance in Rivals at some point. He's become such a big part of Marvel media now that it's inevitable. That wasn't even an intended Easter egg, by the way. But yeah, like I was saying, Thanos is the mainstream idea of an endgame level bad guy for Marvel now, and his appearance has become synonymous with the Infinity Stones. So I'd be willing to bet that whatever season he's introduced in is going to be heavily inspired and based around the Infinity Stones. And if I'm going off the lore I just built for Onslaught, I think Thanos would come after Onslaught, as maybe the rival heroes utilize one of the stones to stop Onslaught. This would potentially give the devs a way to introduce Vision utilizing his Mind Stone. Then, once Onslaught has been defeated, Thanos senses the use of the Mind Stone and makes his way towards the signal, and bam, now we're fighting Thanos, and it's a race to see who can gather more Infinity Stones first. Hopefully though, Rivals' Thanos has much better of a motive than MCU Thanos does for gathering the stones, because if you don't know, in the comics, Thanos doesn't even try to go after the Infinity Stones. He literally just wants to kill a bunch of people because he's in love with death, like the entity Death, which in Marvel canon basically just looks like the hot dommy mommy version of Skeletor, so I'm kinda willing to hear comic Thanos out at the very least. Man's got some good motives, I gotta say. Or two. And now, because I kind of just set the precedence for one of my unconfirmed fan-made lore theories leading into another one, perhaps beating Thanos alerts our third entry to the ongoing conflict and the amount of raw energy it is generating. So after Thanos, we get the motherfucking Eater of Worlds, Galactus. So y'all remember how I just said I love the X-Men and Onslaught? Well, I also love Galactus. The sole reason being that when I was a kid, I had this giant toy of Galactus that I always used as the final boss whenever I was playing with my action figures. Like, I shit you not, this toy must have been like a foot tall. Actually, you know what? Y'all wait right here for a second. This is it right here. This is the toy. This is the toy I was talking about. If my memory is right, this is the exact toy I had as a kid. I remember because it had a button on the chest that made him light up and stuff. God damn, nostalgia's hitting right now. But yeah, he was like 14 inches tall apparently, which is just madness for a toy. Anyways, getting back on track, Galactus as a Rivals big bad evil guy, like Thanos, just seems like an inevitable choice, especially with the Fantastic Four and Doctor Doom making their MCU debuts. Galactus is also exciting as BBEG for a season, because that means we would very likely get the Silver Surfer as a new hero, and I don't think I've ever met a person who didn't think the Silver Surfer was dope as fuck. He's a shredded, space-surfing man with chrome skin and the power cosmic at his fingertips. Yeah, waiter, let me get 3 more of those, please. Now, like I was saying before I got derailed by my childhood memories, Galactus would be attracted to Earth 2099 by the numerous conflicts that have been happening here since the start of Rivals, and with all the chrono energy wafting around, it's probably making the whole planet look like an astronomical buffet for old Space Daddy. It's likely that the Silver Surfer would come in the first half of the season as an enemy, but then in the second half he'd join us in the fight against Galactus. This season would also very likely see us get some more Herald of Galactus skins for our heroes, as like with the Ultron infected skins, Galactus would grant the power cosmic to some of the heroes in order to coerce them to help him in his endeavors. And if you don't know, the Thor Herald of Thunder skin is Thor after becoming a Herald of Galactus. Now, our 4th and 5th spots for this video may be slightly obscure enemies, but at number 4 we have the Kree / the Kree Super Intelligence. I had a couple characters I thought could go in this 4th slot, but because I've begun trying to somewhat make a cohesive and connecting lore reason for each of these entries showing up in Rivals, I felt like the Kree would transition well coming off of a Galactus season. The Kree are a race of technologically advanced aliens who use bioengineering and eugenics to create well, everything. The Kree love 2 things, it's war and bioengineering, and they are frighteningly good at both of them. They bioengineer themselves to be superorganisms, they bioengineer other alien races to make them more controllable or less controllable, or to create bioweapons, or just to see what they can make. Basically, take whatever you want and do whatever you want to the people that are in the way of that goal. Now, with that short lesson on Kree sociology, the Kree Empire is controlled by a collective consciousness, full circle back to Onslaught I guess, known as the Supreme Intelligence. The Supreme Intelligence is a collective of all the greatest Kree minds, from military generals to scientists and philosophers, merged into a single entity, usually having their brains assimilated after death, which kinda just sounds like eternal hell. You spend your entire life working, and then you die, and 2 days later you wake up in a vat of liquid with 1,000,000 years worth of other people's brains, and now you're forced to govern an entire authoritarian space empire. #fun. Kree society, however, worships the Supreme Intelligence as both its head of state and as a pseudo-deity. Boy, that sounds a little bit relevant to the current political climate of the world. Anyways, as for the Rivals version of the Kree, I could see them tracking the movements of Galactus, since just about every advanced spacefaring empire in Marvel is always on guard for Galactus because he basically can't be killed. So the only way to stop him is to either divert him to a new target or to just evacuate your planet entirely. So because of that, the Kree are keeping track of him and come to realize that Galactus has been spotted on Earth and that somehow the heroes there were able to repel him. Curious as to this revelation, the Kree start investigating and discover all of the chrono energies and all of the other shenanigans happening on Earth. So they dispatch a fleet to go bring democracy.
Could this be the end of managed democracy? Not today.
To the Earthlings. This season would of course give us Captain Marvel and Nova as its two heroes, since both of them have blood connections to the Kree. Captain Marvel quite literally gets her powers from Kree technology and bioengineering, and Nova is part of an empire/intergalactic police force that have been at war with the Kree for thousands of years. So perhaps Captain Marvel will come to Earth to warn us of the coming Kree, and then Nova will arrive in the second half of the season to help us push their forces back to prevent the Kree from accessing the chrono energy surrounding Earth. And for the fifth and final entry, we have another X-Men villain, the Shadow King. The Shadow King is the psionic embodiment of the collective dark side of human consciousness throughout the multiverse. It's almost like a reverse Phoenix Force, and actually in recent comics, the Shadow King himself has said one of his former identities is the Goblin Force, which is a literal opposing force to the Phoenix Force. In fact, the Goblin Force is the entity possessing Madeline Pryor, the Goblin Queen and Jean Grey's clone, very similarly to how the Phoenix Force possesses Jean Grey. The Shadow King has been around on Earth since seemingly the 16th century Egypt, which is where it first bonded with a man named Amal Farouk, likely due to his telepathic mutant abilities. And ever since then, it has been pulling strings and manipulating mankind down a path of darkness. Now, how do we fit Senor Shadow King into Marvel Rivals? Well, perhaps our heroes will need to enlist the aid of one Mr. Sinister to help against the Kree. Mr. Sinister, being a despicable bioengineer himself, may be able to give our heroes some much needed insight and assistance into the Kree, seeing as how the two love to meddle in eugenics. Mr. Sinister will agree to aid us in the fight against the Kree, but with ulterior motives, of course. This season could have a convoy or a convergence map that has us delivering some type of bioweapon payload straight into a Kree command center in an attempt to infect their supreme intelligence with a biotechnical virus that Mr. Sinister has come up with himself. Once the Kree has been repelled from Earth, Mr. Sinister will reveal that he had stolen some of Jean Grey's DNA to make the clone Madeline Pryor, giving the Shadow King a much needed vessel to latch onto. This would lead to the major conflict of the season, which would be us trying to contain the Shadow King and stop him before he can rise to his full power as the Goblin Force and consume the multiverse. This would also be when we get some more X-Men heroes. I'm thinking Cyclops and Cable, as they would be perfect to add into the game at this point, given their connection to Jean Grey, Mr. Sinister, and Madeline Pryor. Anyways y'all, that's gonna wrap this one up. That was 5 possible villains for the future seasons of Marvel Rivals. If you want to see another of these, drop a like and a comment, as I have another 5 in my back pocket that I'll make a second video for if this video does well. However, if you did not like the video, by all means drop a dislike and a comment to let me know why you hate me and how you made it this far into a video you don't like. And if you really like the video and want to directly tell me to make another one, go on and click that subscribe button. And until next time, I'll catch y'all later.